Hello and welcome to Base Creators video series Success Through Lockdown, where each week I look far and wide for some of the more unsung entrepreneurial superheroes who've overcome lockdown and have been ready to share their ideas with me. Now, last week I spoke with Ilona from Ms.Pomelo, who'd lost all potential for funding for her bespoke bra company when lockdown started. With such a devastating blow, Ilona managed to bounce back by creating a new hero product, and all without a penny of investment. You can see that interview now on the Base Creative website at basecreative.co.uk. Today I'm with Sam from Carter Perry Bailey. Being a law firm in the city, using more traditional marketing methods, lockdown posed some interesting challenges. No more client lunches, no more in-person legal seminars. Instead, they decided to take their hands to creating their very first podcast. And with no to little experience, let's find out how they got on. I'm joined with Sam from Carter Perry Bailey. Good morning, Sam. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you, Ian. How are you?
I'm excellent. Thank you very much for spending some time this morning talking to me about some of the challenges that Carter Perry Bailey has been through. But first off, just so everyone's a bit clear about what you do, tell us, give a quick 30-second intro.
Well, Carter Perry Bailey, we're a small law firm specialising in insurance and reinsurance. We're about 10 years old now. It was formed 10 years ago by the three sort of founding partners, Carter Perry and Bailey. All three been in the insurance industry for over 20 years, and they wanted to go from sort of the big law firms that they've been working at and create their own small specialist law firm. And so we're primarily in the insurance and reinsurance markets, but also we do cyber and data protection and commercial disputes. And we work with a number of consultants, so we also branch out into regulatory issues and employment issues, which has been particularly important during lockdown. And our clients are sort of anything from large multinational companies and insurance companies right down to private clients. So it's sort of commercial and private, a mixture of both.
Great. Now, when we had our quick sort of pre-interview conversation, we were talking around some of the more sort of traditional ways that Carter Perry Bailey used to market itself, and also because you've got a great location in Tower. Obviously, all that kind of changed when lockdown hit, right? Because you don't get the advantage of the location. So, as a law firm, where were you most comfortable in marketing and sort of communicating to clients about what you did? What were the more traditional methods that you were using before lockdown?
Well, definitely because of where we're based, we are sort of in the insurance area. We're in EC3 and we're near to Lloyd's of London, and we're near where all the insurance companies are based. So it was very easy with our clients just to pick up the phone and say, look, let's just have a coffee. We're all based in the same area. You might just be walking out to grab your lunch and you'll see clients and contacts. So it was very much face to face. There was lunches or just a quick drink after work. It was just very easy to meet people. You didn't even really have to sort of coordinate diaries too much because everything was just so close. Everybody was 5 minutes away. So it was all done face to face. And that's why we are based where we are, because we want to have that close proximity. And of course, when lockdown happened, everybody goes back to their homes, and you just don't have that. You don't have the benefit of that anymore.
Yeah.
And while we do send out monthly sort of articles and bulletins and things to update people with current information, it was really the face to face where we marketed ourselves and how we where we felt comfortable meeting clients and contacts.
Well, I mean, I think it's a famous saying goes right. It's location, location, location. I'm sure that's even more important from a commercial and business point of view. We were very similar. We moved to Shoreditch, had been there 10 weeks. So, meeting clients or even contacts and associates in the pub or locally just wasn't going to happen. But for you guys, I can see, that being a huge problem and having to sort of to shift. How did your communications, how did your marketing change? What were the few things that you decided to do, bearing in mind now you couldn't take advantage of being in Tower?
Well, we sort of tried to sit down as a firm not long after lockdown started, sort of once the the mania of those first few weeks had settled down and everybody got used to working from home. And we sort of sat down and said, right, well, what are we going to do? We're a small firm, so we take on board marketing as a firm. Everybody has input into it. And we thought, what are we going to do? Because we can't do what we did before. And nobody had any idea how long it would last. I mean, we're sort of 4 months in now. We're going back to March, April. Nobody would think it would last this long. And, it's going to go on even further. So we sat down and thought, well, how can we make the most of this situation? So we all kind of gave our experiences of how we were finding working from home, how we were being marketed by other people, and what we sort of really wanted to, how we felt that we wanted to be marketed so that we could then put that back out. So at a sort of a higher level, we thought we can organise Zoom meetings with people. We can, have small groups, that we have social Zoom meetings, and whether that's with a wine tasting or a quiz or something like that. But then we thought about what could we do that was sort of different and that would get our name out there. And we do monthly articles and bulletins. And I think that's the same as a lot of law firms. That is a very traditional way of reaching people. But what we realised was that there was a captive audience at home. People weren't going out and doing the lunches and the coffees and the face-to-face meetings. Everybody was at their desk. But also everybody was sort of being inundated with articles, new pieces of information, and that maybe that, although it's still very good and we'd still want to do it, maybe that wasn't the best way that we were going to reach people. We thought that there's also sort of webinars and things like that, which were very, very useful, but there were a lot out there, and we weren't persuaded that we would be able to sort of differentiate ourselves enough to really sort of capture the audience that we needed. So somebody in the team said that their partner created podcasts, and that maybe, this could be something that's sort of in the middle, where we could reach people at home, but not just be another long article that they needed to read, but a sort of a 15, 20-minute break where they could absorb the information whilst they were doing something else, making a cup of tea, having a break from being at the screen. And so we sort of considered whether, we might be able to get our message out that way. And it was, we're a traditional law firm. We've got, 5 very, very experienced partners that have been in the industry a long time. And I don't think podcasts were ever something that they thought that they were going to be doing. And there was a bit of pushback because it's an unknown. How long is it going to take? Is it even possible? I mean, before this, if you'd asked me about preparing a podcast, I would have thought it was as difficult as making a movie. I just didn't know quite how digital content worked in that way. So it was definitely a journey, but we decided that we'd give it a go. We'd see if we could record, 1, maybe 2, see how easy the process was and how the end result sounded, and take it from there.
Okay, this is really interesting. So you've recognised that there needs to be more digital part of your marketing communications, and a podcast came out of that. And it's not as if you've got some in-house expertise or someone's going, I've done this 1,000 times before. Even approaching an outside agency to do that for you is taking quite a bold step and going, let's just give this a go and seeing what happens. And as I know many people who will be listening to this know that Base Creative is a digital marketing agency, and we would absolutely say podcasts should be a part of your marketing mix. So this is really refreshing to hear. First off, though, what's the format you have adopted for the podcast?
Well, the way we've sort of found that it's worked for us is that somebody will come up with a topic that they think is interesting, it's current, they want to speak about it, they've got something to say about it. And there's a consultant that we work with that's got a very lovely conversational tone, and he's a very interesting man to speak to anyway. So he said, well, why don't we sort of have a back and forth conversation? You give me the topic, I'll read up around it, and I'll just sort of ask you some general questions, because we didn't want it to be a sort of download of information. I don't think we didn't think that it would be interesting enough just to have somebody essentially reading what would be in an article, but putting it out in a podcast. We wanted it to be a chat. We wanted it to be fairly sort of off the cuff. We didn't want it to be all pre-prepared, so that we were just going back and forth and it sounded a bit stale. And we did have to play around with the format a little bit, because you think it's easy to just sit and have a conversation with somebody, but finding that balance of it being prepared enough that you know what you're saying, but not so prepared that it sounds prepared, is challenging itself.
Because you want it to flow and feel informal, as you say, off the cuff, but spontaneity, certainly nowhere near scripted. But equally valuable, and you don't want sort of conversation to waffle. But you play around with the format. I think you picked out a couple of really good pieces of advice there, which is have some prep beforehand. Find someone in the organisation who's got a nice tone about them. I think that's what you'd said, and sit down and have that conversation. So you've got a sort of question answer interview style. That gives them as well some variety, because it's more than one person speaking. So just in terms of a bit of input from your side, how long does it take to prepare a podcast that ultimately ends up being the finished product?
Well, there's a bit of research from the person that's picked the topic. They want to be able to read around it and know what's going on. So there's probably a couple of hours there. And then I think for actually recording the podcast, I imagine that each podcast is probably taking about 2 or 3, maybe 5 minutes less than the previous. So the first one took an awful long time. Even just sort of learning that if you want to repeat something, you need to stop and say it again. And there are so many little things that you just don't know until you try to record your first one. So I think the first one took us I probably don't even want to try and remember how long the first one took to record, but then it all gets edited and sort of whittled down into that 15 to 20 minutes of, valuable and interesting information. But as we do them, we're getting better at making the conversation flow, better at knowing the bits that we want to say. We're learning as a firm as well, and it's certainly a process for us. But each one just gets a bit easier than the last one. And I think the more that the individual records them, the easier it becomes as well, because you just get used to how to do it. The first one I think that I did, I felt like I read from a piece of paper, because I wanted to get all my points across, and then I listened back to it and I thought, I sound like I'm reading from a piece of paper. It's a skill. It's very different to standing up and sort of giving a talk or giving training, which is something that we're used to as lawyers. We know how to do that, but actually making what you say sound interesting and natural is a whole different skill.
But that's no doubt something, your skill set you're willing to add. I'm sure will be valuable outside of producing podcasts as well. So how long is a podcast?
They're about 15 to 20 minutes. They vary depending on sort of the starting content.
Yeah, and how frequently are you producing them?
Well, we tend to have a sort of a run of a few. So we're probably publishing them. Well, we're trying to do them every few weeks to sort of every month, but there's some that we've got that are still on the editing floor. And if there's something that comes up that's quite topical, we try and get it out. So it's still very early days. So we're not trying to set ourselves to doing anything regularly, because it then sets yourself up for a fall if you think that you're going to be producing something every certain amount of weeks. So we try and be a bit more flexible of that, and where necessary, we sort of intersperse them with articles that we send out anyway. So it's not too much of a commitment.
I'm sure with what's going on, with employment in particular, that the new information is coming out probably more frequently than on a weekly basis, that podcasts are a great way to get professional opinion on the questions people are asking. Just in terms of the practical side of setting up a podcast, so normally you'd have some kit, you'd have the right kind of microphone, all that kind of stuff. Obviously you're in lockdown and everyone's working remotely. How do you go about the practicalities of recording it?
Well, we sort of record voice notes on a voice notes on our phone. It's very sort of basic, because we are just starting out. We tend to try and get into the smallest room of the house, and then we've learned little tricks like keeping your phone on a cushion, and we have three people. So there's somebody, and it's a three-way Zoom, and the two speakers are recording on their phones. And then we have this, we have a clap at the start to sort of get us all on the same time. So it's quite interesting because you can see the people, but you're sort of speaking into your phone at the same time. So little tricks trying to get the acoustics right. And yet not having any of the setup at all that I'm sure most people that produce podcasts have. We've just sort of made the most of what we've got. But we've got an excellent editor who makes our ums and ahs disappear and makes it sound like we're in a recording studio. So we've made it work, even though we haven't really got any of the equipment to do so.
Great. And yeah, absolutely. I think that's really kind of valuable for everyone to hear that, it is possible, even in lockdown, as you said, find the smallest room in the house, grab a cushion, record it on voice notes, so everyone's feel like the same kind of quality, and then get an editor to put that all together for you. And there it is, 15, 20 minutes. And the great thing about doing a podcast over, say, a video interview is that you and I can't hide in the smallest room in the house while we do this session, but what you can do in a podcast. That's been really helpful to hear. Having done that now, do you think that you'd prefer maybe to do it sooner, or actually, just taking lockdown to kind of push and persuade everyone to produce podcasts now?
Well, I don't think we ever would have persuaded people to do it without lockdown. And now that we're sort of up and producing them, and we're trying to make them more regular, and I think it will just become part of our marketing. You do wonder why you didn't do it before, but it's been forced into this very unique situation that's made us reassess how we do things, which I think we wouldn't have otherwise done. So we might have, maybe it would have been flagged up once at a marketing meeting and then sort of disregarded. Well, no, we don't do podcasts, because it's just not something that, I don't think it's something that many law firms do anyway, but particularly not us. We're a small law firm. We don't have the equipment. We just wouldn't have thought about doing it. So it's been a real positive that's come out of lockdown. And I think, as well as other things, we've just sort of looked at the way we do business and try to see if there's anything that we can improve, because we have been forced to look at things differently.
What has been the impact? I should ask that question, really. What's been the impact of having a podcast? What kind of feedback have you received?
Well, we've received feedback. So we send out our monthly articles, and, we'll get the odd sort of positive email in response, or someone that was saying, well, that's something I was interested in, a follow-up question. But we've received, feedback from people that we haven't heard from before. They're on our circulation list, but just to say that was great, that was really helpful, and it was a really interesting way and very easy way to absorb information with everything else that's going on at the moment. So we've had really, really positive feedback, and it's been often a point of discussion when clients have called about something and say, oh, I heard so-and-so's podcast the other day. So it has received very positive feedback, and I think people like that way of receiving information, that it's not reading and it's not committing to a whole webinar. It's something you can listen to, when you've got the 15 minutes to do it. So it's been, really well received.
And I suppose that the crux of this as well, maybe a question I should have asked you before we hit record, is, are you going to continue with the podcasts even well after lockdown? Bit of a loaded question, really, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I think we will. I think we'll, particularly the effort we put into, mastering how to record them. I think we will, because they have been well received, and I think it's an additional skill for us. I think that it has made us sort of learn how to take a topic and have a conversation with someone about it. So it's skill sets for us. It's a great way of reaching our clients, and it's a nice way to sort of distill a topic down into 15, 20 minutes of a soundbite. So I think it is something that we will continue doing, and we'll make sure that we make time to do it in our sort of general marketing.
Super. Sam, if people want to listen to the podcast, what's the easiest way they can find it?
The easiest way is probably on our website, which is www.cpblaw.com, and it will be in our articles and publications. They'll all be on there, and once you click on there, then you can get through to the Buzzsprouts site where they'll all be there.
Super, great. Thank you very much for your time, Sam, this morning. It's been really valuable. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thanks very much, Ian.
Both mine and Sam's details are going to be on the screen very shortly. But if you'd like to recap on any of the other Success Through Lockdown video series, you can see it on our website now at basecreative.co.uk. You can also hear some more great content on our very own podcast found on iTunes. Just search for Base Creative's Touching Base. Thank you very much for watching, and see you soon.